Okay, well, this is part 2 of the Halloween sewing tricks, and I did just complete the sequin part, which is in part 1 of the Halloween live sewing tricks. Now I'm going to show the sewing of elastic, if I can get this thing to work. There we go. I sure hope nothing else goes wrong, because it's exasperating when this stuff happens. Let's see if I'm on the right one. And it says stop streaming, so come on. Okay, am I live? This is so bizarre. So sorry, guys, I tell you what. It's insane how challenging going live can be. I'm not going to complain. We'll just get right back to it. Sewing elastic is a challenge, normally. For those of you who already have seen how the Sequins and Ribbon Foot makes elastic so much easier, your dog just sighed for me. Oh my goodness. All right. I'm just going to be quick about this. I tell you, they want me to pay like $100 a month for this service so that I never go down like that. And I don't know what to say. I shouldn't be saying anything. Here we go. The Sequins and Ribbon Foot has a tunnel or a tube for the elastic to go inside. And we have 2 additional guides for this foot so you can sew different size elastics. But today I'm going to show you the most common size for costuming, which would be your 1/4 inch elastic, especially if you have a little one in your life. And the best thread to use would be a lingerie thread. If you don't have any, we do carry it at creativefeet.com, and it's a nylon thread, has stretch to it, which makes it really strong and makes it behave better when the needle goes through the elastic. If you've ever tried to sew through elastic, have you ever tried it? Have you ever gotten your needle to go through the elastic and not broke a needle? If you do, you probably have my Sequins and Ribbon Foot. How about, have you ever broke your needle sewing elastic before? I'm going to show you which stitch I'm going to use by drawing it. And it is, as someone guessed, the broken zigzag was one of your guesses. So instead of a broken zigzag, it's called the 3-step zigzag. It goes stitch, 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 stitch. And the Bernina, it's called a serpentine stitch. Other machines, it could be called the tricot stitch or the 3-step zigzag stitch. And it looks like this. Stitch, stitch, stitch. And that's how it sews. And what it does is because these stitches are broken, it makes it stretch even more. Yes, it can be used on any project. You're correct, Linda. But Halloween, I think when people go to the store and they get Halloween stuff, it seems a bit foreign, because all of a sudden there's all these really unusual fabrics in the store for you to choose from. And if you're like me, I don't care if I have a plan. If I see some fabric that I absolutely love, I'm buying it. And if you don't know how to sew it, it can be a daunting experience. I'm going to put some of this elastic on this lace just to kind of help you understand and tell you my secret to making sure that I know how much elastic for the actual garment. And I'm going to do this so that I can cut this elastic off because I love this lace. Isn't it gorgeous? It's got this beautiful pattern on it, and one day I'm going to make something worthwhile with it. So what you do is choose how or measure the distance that you're going to have to sew the elastic. That elastic then needs to fit an area of the body, perhaps a wrist. And what you do on measuring your wrist is you take the elastic and wrap it around your wrist instead of using a measuring tape. And then stretch it to the desired tightness, because sometimes you'll be having it too loose and that's no good. And sometimes, well, you have it so tight it's cutting off your circulation. I just created a new word. Okay, so this right here is a good tightness for my wrist where I don't feel like it will constrict me. And I put my finger down like that, and I had already marked mentally. I'm so nervous about losing the feed again. I feel rushed, so I generally will mark my elastic 1 inch away from the end of the elastic, and then do what I showed you. Go around, find the mark, and pinch that mark with the elastic until I have the desired tightness. Then I got that between my fingers, making sure I got the same side up with the marks already showing, and draw a line. That's the distance that I need to attach the elastic to the fabric. Now, to make sure that it looks pretty all the way around the wrist, you then take and fold the elastic, line up the two lines with each other. It's easier sometimes if you draw on the side of the elastic. Then you fold the elastic again and mark the inside and the outside of every fold. This pen is a little dried up. And that's how you can get it sectioned off in equal sections without having to think about it. The same thing is done on the fabric. You mark your fabric in equal sections. And this is not the best fabric for that because you're not going to be able to see any pen I write on that. So let's just pretend I have marked it. Slide the elastic into the tube on the foot. And then you bring the elastic all the way into the foot. And what we're trying to do is start the stitch on that first mark of the elastic. So look in the opening of the foot until you see the line is lined up with the needle, and then lower the foot. So the needle is lined up with the first line on the elastic. And then my foot pressure was loose for the sequins. Now I need it to be tight for the elastic because I'm going to be pulling in toward me, and I have the right side of the fabric up right now. Let's see. That's not what I normally do. Although I have a technique. I have lots of different techniques for elastic. And it's one of the easiest things you'll ever do if you have my sequins and ribbon foot. It's all in the design of the base of the foot. So I'm going into my foot pressure setting. That's the beeping you're hearing, and I took it to the strength of 4, which is what my machine is normal at. And then I'm increasing the stitch length all the way to the longest stitch length. So the width of the stitch is how wide is the elastic, and you want to make sure your needle is staying on the elastic, not going off of it. So choose the width of the elastic or the stitch based on the elastic width. Then the stitch length is the longest stitch length because we are going to play tug of war with the machine. We're going to pull towards ourselves, and the machine is going to pull the elastic through the back side without you having to be the other puller from behind the foot. Have you ever sewn elastic and done this and felt like you were having a relationship with your sewing machine? Okay, you guys aren't chatting. Oh, wait, that chat's stuck. I think. All right, here we go. So stretching the elastic to meet the mark on the fabric, and then you hold your finger down and begin sewing. If your stitch is not falling on the elastic, you can adjust the guide, moving the elastic over to line up with the needle. Each time I'm stretching and pulling toward me. And then you can go back a little bit to tie a knot. It's really hard to rip out this stitch. And you can see I was able to stay right on the edge of the fabric real easy, even though this is a very slippery, lacy fabric. Actually, I didn't sew all the way to the last mark. So if you don't do that, you can just put the foot back down and continue. I hurt my thumb a while ago and it's still bugging me. After you sew the elastic, you can then roll it over and roll it over again. You thought you were supposed to. You are. If you get a really good sewing machine, you will feel like kissing it goodnight after it serves you so well. Now, once again, all the way around so that all that stitching that I just did is invisible. And it allows me to stretch it all the way out. If you don't have a sewing machine with a zigzag stitch, you can also use a straight stitch and use a really long length. I am going to do that now, changing to a left needle position so it's lining up on the edge where the elastic is sewn, and length also, again, all the way to 5 now on my length. Stretching it all the way out, making sure it's nice and neat. And then you go ahead and sew. Once again, we're playing tug of war with the machine, and the machine is winning. Try to keep your, this is one time I have to guide, because the Satinedge foot is not designed to hold your fabric tight like this foot is. And even though this foot is designed to hold your fabric tight, it's also designed to hold your fabric loose. And now you have just this really clean little straight stitch for your elastic, and it fits your wrist and is comfortable. Same thing would be true if you have to sew this for a pair of pants or leggings for the I Dream of Jeannie costume. Now I'm going to put some pearls on the edge of this because that makes a really pretty tutu to have some beads on the edge. I'm using the pearls in Piping Foot, and I have some fuchsia pearls to add to that. In this case, you would definitely want to use a complementary color of thread, or better, use an invisible thread. That way there's no stitch showing at all. And since we had the internet go down already, I'm going to just stick with this black thread so you can see what's going on. Have any of you ever sewn a tutu before? Have any princesses or ballerinas in your life that you had to do that for? If so, tell me about it. do. When you place these beads beneath the foot and under the tunnel, do so before you start sewing to determine if you have the washer that's on the snap-on bar in the proper position, because you have the foot has a little slider, and this is one that has paint on it, to remind you that you can buy glow-in-the-dark paint, nail polish during Halloween season that's clear, not purple like this, and just paint the side of it. And then if you ever drop your pearls and piping foot on the ground, turn off the light and it will glow in the dark. So this has a little slider on the actual snap-on bar, and we don't know which side to put that on until you put a pearl beneath the foot. Select the width of the stitch, and I like to use a stitch width that's about 4.5 when I sew on the edge of a piece of fabric. So I go wider than I would if I was sewing on top of the fabric. And it's a regular zigzag stitch, a stitch that just goes stitch, 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 or zigzag, zigzag, zigzag. Turning the handle, I can see that my needle is going to clear the pearls in the right position, and that was at a 3.5 millimeter. This is perfect. If it wasn't, then I would take the foot off, slide the washer over, and reattach it. I'm unwinding to make it so that nothing is causing this to drag, and letting the foot do the guiding. So you won't see me hold it or put my fingers like this to guide it. Instead, I get to guide the fabric. And the stitch length on a sheer fabric is a little bit shorter than on another fabric, but I'm going to take this to 2.0 on the stitch length. And I need to reduce the pressure on the foot. Back down again, I have to 2 on the foot pressure. Tension on the thread also needs to drop down to a 3.0 from a 4.0, or one number less than what you have as normal on your machine. So if you've ever tried or thought about putting beads on a wedding nail before, you can see how fast I applied that, and there is no need to do any stabilization or finishing of the edge first or prior to sewing them on. When I work with fabrics like this, though, I do gently pull from behind the foot, holding the pearls, because they slip. This fabric will slip on the feed dogs. You guys are being really quiet. Are you there? Hello? When I say I'm pulling, I'm not replacing the feed dogs. I'm just giving a little bit of tension to help it feed through. And now I'm going to cut this and show you that you can also sew it on top of the fabric. Hi Sarah, thanks for joining us. I may as well go all the way to the end. Notice that my hand is not guiding the pearls. Now when it's this easy, you might go, I could do that so easy. I may as well do more than one row, because then my child will stand out from all the other children. Well, maybe you don't think the way I do. Now the setting that I had that set for was for off the fabric. I don't want to use the same setting for on the fabric. going to take the foot off, slide it was on this side, so now I'm going to push it to this side, and I'm going to take the width down from a 5 to a 3.5, as the pearls that I have here are 2.5 millimeter wide. So basically you just, when sewing pearls on top of fabric, want it to be, the width of the stitch to be 1 millimeter wider than the pearl. And you should double check all your settings before you begin. 3.5. Beep, 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 beep. Noisy thing. As I'm sewing, I'm lining up the edge of the foot with the row of pearls that's already there. Not guiding the pearls, guiding the fabric. As before, I am pulling, holding onto the pearls that I've already stitched, just gently from behind the foot, because this fabric is slippery, and so is tulle. Not really having to worry about sewing straight, because I just keep it right up against the edge of the pearls and the foot guides me. This needle is an 80-12 super universal needle by Schmetz. You can find them at creativefeet.com. If you want to sew through sequins, because last lesson I showed sequins, then you use a leather 80-12 needle for sewing through sequins. That is how you would sew them on if you only have a straight stitch sewing machine. So now you can see I have 2 rows of pearls. This lighting's a little harsh. I do post pictures in the school after the show with close-up shots in the discussion below the notification of each episode. Next, we want to gather up this fabric. And remember, I could have sewed the pearls on with this glow-in-the-dark thread and had them actually make the beads kind of glow at night. The next, I forgot I had changed things. Okay, so the next process is to take a large volume of fabric. If you're making a tutu, you know it's yards and yards and yards of fabric to make them that full so that the tutus stick up like that. Anytime you want to gather up a lot of fabric like that and bring it together, you could break your thread, right? Have you ever broken your thread gathering your fabric before? If you have, give me a thumbs up or some kind of identifier. And know that you never have to worry about breaking your thread again, because I have techniques to eliminate that. And gathering is done with the pearls and piping foot. It may sound funny, but it is ideal and better than any other gathering foot. It's all in the design of the foot. It's going to gather the fabric up for you so that you do not have to pull from behind or hold your finger back there. Using a straight stitch, a center needle position, we want the needle to be center with the tunnel on the foot, and then you're going to increase your thread tension all the way to 9 on your machine. And if you're thinking, what? That's why there's 0 through 9 on your tension dial, so you can use number 9. And now the stitch length all the way to the top, all the way to 5 on my machine. So we have a really tight tension and a really long stitch length and a loose foot pressure. And this is the magic for making a gathering stitch. And it will not work unless you sew a few stitches forward and a few stitches back. And that is all you need to do, other than guiding as straight as you can, looking at the side of the foot, and the fabric just gathers all the way up all by itself. So I thought I'd show you from a distance and I'm just holding my fingers like this to planting my elbows against my body so that I'm not having to hold my arms up or use those muscle groups. This is fully gathered. And now I'll go to the short or the close view for you. See how it just draws that fabric right up? And it's gathering it all the way up. You have to watch it because it can come back around as it's gathering and get caught on the needle. So keep your eye on this area right here so that you're sewing the same distance away, and don't hold back on the fabric. There is that tendency to feel like, well, it's taking the fabric so fast, I need to hold back. But if you do, you're going to stop it from gathering. It's a very light touch. And then you go all the way off and do not cut your threads until you have adjusted this to the length or just don't cut it short, and I'll show you what I mean. Then you have the ability to ease or adjust these gathers. Now we have a really cute little Barbie skirt. If you've ever made a tutu and it wasn't that easy, sorry about that, but now it can be. And the next thing I'm going to show is, I wanted to do a spider web in this fabric, but I also wanted to show you a little ribbon. I'm going to do the spider web because I think you'll get mad at me if I don't do that, right? Hi, Lynn. I think you got the super universal needles. For sewing spider webs, we're going to use the octi hoops. If I can find my set. I was trying not to use oh well, I'll just use this. Should I do a spider web on this silver fabric? No, or on this, looks like a nice fabric for making a vampire outfit. I'm going to lay these down and let you guys decide which one I should do a black spider web on. Oh, that camera's a little blurry, isn't it? Which one? The red or the silver? And I'm looking for my stick and tear, which I thought was near me, but apparently is not. I wish you could see my dog. He looks so cute right now. He is sound asleep on the other side of my table. Yes, the silver would show up more. Sorry if I'm not getting all your messages. And there's not that many votes, so right now we have more red than silver. This is Stick and Tear, which is available at Creative Feet and any dealer that carries the Creative Feet stabilizers for embroidery. It is the only one that does not ever get your needle gummy. And I'm going to use my smaller hoop because I'm not going to be doing a really big one. That'll keep me from getting carried away, as this day does have to end. Not sure what time it is. 3:19. That's it. So an hour and 20 minutes. And part of that was we shut down because the internet dropped. It was very strange because it still showed I was streaming. I'm not sure what happened. Now this side is paper and this side is the stabilizer. To save my fabric cutting scissors, I use paper scissors for this. Come on. There we go. These little pieces that you cut off can be used to patch, so I don't throw them away. Another really nice use for these I could have used last week when I was doing that fur is this actually can be used to get lint off your clothes. I don't need to peel that. I'm doing this one. An easier way to get it to come off is to fold it and then fold it again the other way. If you missed last week, I made this black and gray checker scarf with fur ends. So that's a complete project. If you want to learn how to combine fur with stretchy knit, that's what that one was about. And I think the fake fur has a shelf life because it was really, really sheddy, more than I've ever remembered. So then we just peel the adhesive back tearaway stabilizer off of the release liner, which is the paper, and then you lay the hoop down with the whole side facing down on a flat surface, and we apply the stabilizer to the frame. And then rub it. Okay, I'm not straight. I wish my thumb weren't hurt. It's a lot better than it was. And just know this is not freezer paper, so it will not iron on to your fabric. But it's so substantial that I have a really hard time throwing this away. I think it'd be really good for clay, Amy, that paper. What you're going to see me do is amazing, so you want to pay attention. The idea is to end up with a hole that is a spider web. I am making this very taut, making sure there's no wrinkles in the stabilizer. And I look around the inside edge and I can see there's a little pucker here, so I'm going to lift it up and reposition. Well, you could build it, you can build something on it and clay won't stick to it. There we go. So that's really taut. Can make a drum out of it. And I am going to cut an opening in this. So go through all that trouble, and I should not be using Apple-Quick scissors. Where's my junky scissors? Here they are. This is a still very taut out there. And this window you can put your scrap back on the paper. And we have our fabric, and I want to cut a hole. I want to have a spider web opening. Try not to waste this fabric either. So I'm pushing down around on the adhesive part, so now it's bonded nicely. And I can also go around and do a long stitch to make sure it doesn't slip when I build the actual spider web. And now I'm cutting this hole in the fabric, and I want a round hole, roundish. There we go. Not quite round, and so this is a organza fabric right here, and velvet. So if you've ever tried sewing organza and velvet before, both of those can be quite challenging. Have you ever done that? Have you ever tried either one? Have you ever sewn velvet and had it an impossible time? I'm going to cut this because there's no way to take out a spider web once it's in there. This could be a really neat front to a Halloween bag for candy. And once again, I have furry things coming off. All right, here we go. I'm removing the presser foot and the snap-on adapter that came with my sewing machine. And trying to get the velvet that fell off of my face. So now with no presser foot, we don't have any risk of the fabric getting affected by a foot, since there is nothing on the edge of that fabric. And then you just slide it on the surface of your sewing machine and grab one of the handles. Handles, where are you? You get green handles with the octi hoops, and they drop into the hole on the frame. So this is a way of drawing with your sewing machine. You can see the feed dogs are up in the opening of the machine. That's the sound of my fingernail rubbing against them. I have a straight stitch, and I'm taking my tension to a 3.0 stitch tension, which is one number less than normal. And now I'm holding on to this little handle with my hand down on the machine, and I'm going to draw with this hoop. holding the needle thread for the first few stitches. That's all I have is the needle thread in my hand. And go around, gotta lower the foot, even though there is no foot on the machine. And you can bring the bobbin thread up. I need my glasses. So this is a challenge to see this on camera. Elbows are down. I have my elbow pad here and my other one. And my arm rests on the bed of the machine. So it's a very relaxing position. Holding a little bit on the frame on top, just like you would normally hold your paper and hold a pen. So it's the same posture. Of course, you don't have a whole bunch of stuff in front of you. Well, you shouldn't anyway. And I'm going around the circle, around the edge of it, to create a stay stitch, which, do any of you know what a stay stitch is? The term implies that we are trying to get the fabric to stay still, to not stretch across the bias. So by stitching a straight stitch all the way around the opening before I begin building the spider web, it will stop the fabric from stretching or becoming disfigured as I continue to build the spider web. The stitch length does not exist when there are no feed dog presser foot interaction, or there isn't. And you can see the feed dogs are feeding as I cross the opening where there is nothing. You have every right to leave your feed dogs up if you can't lower them. I mean to say right. There is no need to lower the feed dogs, as you can see. See how I'm going back and forth, and I have black 40 weight polyester thread in the needle and the bobbin. I just keep going back and forth. And the next thing I'm going to do is find my center and make an X. And do the same thing, but when I reach the middle, I'm going a few stitches back and forth and then over. And so that you're not distracted by the feed dogs, I'm going to lower them. And also just to show you that you can in fact sew without the feed dogs up, should you choose to. Another thing that I like to do is zigzag by the movement of the hoop across the stitches that I sewed to keep them together. I didn't do that on that first row. So now I'm going zigzag movement, not a zigzag stitch. This is just a straight stitch. Now I'm going to come around and we're basically making a pizza pie or a pie shape and go over and back when you go on that middle for that at least the first row. And if you think about it before you begin, how many times are you back and forth so that each one of these is the same or has the same number of stitches or thread lines going across? Once again, it's a zigzag movement across and come around. So if you didn't know that you could sew in the middle of nothing, now you know. And this is one of the most difficult fabrics you'd ever sew on, velvet and organza, with no stabilizer at all on the fabric. Zigzag movement again. Now I'm going to make it a spider web, and a spider web has stitches that come across, joining across these thicker bands. There's not going to be as much thread going across because they simply don't build their spider webs that way. So I'm coming up first and 2, 3. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Aiming for the same spot on each of the leaders and trying to catch, actually stitch through it. And here we are back at this one. Now I'm going to go up to the next band and go across and across, stitching through the big band. And go back and come forward. Try to keep your eye on where you're going, not where you're at, so that you end up making each spider webs, each one of these strings going around, lining up in the same spot on each band. And remember, we are actually trying to catch that large band each time with the needle to anchor it. Once again, now I'm going to stitch down the band and start my next, I don't know what to call these. So elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Keep your eye where you're headed, not where you're at. One, 2, stitch through. 1, 2, I didn't stitch through, so I'll show you what happens when you don't. But honestly, most people are not going to notice these subtleties. They're just going to think, how cool, how did you do that? It is so relaxing to do this. It's another way of doing fake tatting by machine as well. You could also use this similar technique, taking it outside of Halloween for a technique called, what's it called? It's white fabric and white thread, and you pull some of the strands of fabric away and you stitch in the opening. Does anyone know the name of it? I can't think of it right offhand. White work? Is that what they call it? Make sure you stitch through the band. I'm almost ready to show you, and I could continue to go all the way down, but it looks really neat when you don't. And that is secure. This is just as tight as the fabric is. I can simply pull the fabric off now. And now you have a spider web on a piece of fabric. Can you see that? This is where I need to be. Okay, I'm pretty sure you saw on the close camera. I hope this inspired you to not be afraid to go into the fabric store and get some costume designs, or if you are know a costume designer who needs to learn how easy this can be, instead of having to do a lot of things by hand. The sequins and ribbon foot I did invent for a costume designer back in the day. I was 21 years old when I designed that foot to sew sequins, and you can swirl them around and do all kinds of designs with them. If you like this video, I hope you'll subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the like button on your way out of the live. And today is October 5th of 2023. This is Fabrically Speaking Live. It airs every Thursday at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Every October, you guys change your clocks. Arizona does not. That means the time you're watching me now, if you're not in Arizona, is going to change, but it's not because I changed, it's because your clock changed. That's why when I send out an announcement, I put, what time is it in Arizona? But you can search that term in Google. What time is it in Arizona? To know what time 2 o'clock is. So you're going to be falling back in your clocks, and I'm not. Right now we are the same time as California. In October, we will not be. We will be earlier than California. We'll be officially 1 hour different than California. And we'll be only 2 hours different than New York. So you might think it's so cool that we don't have to change our clock, but I have a really hard time remembering what time it is everywhere else, as we do not change. So with that, I hope to see you in Create with Claire Rowley, my online school. Thanks for joining me today, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye. I didn't transition. Why not? Oh well. Take 2.